Welcome to another edition of Wildcat Country presented by Harrah's Auction Casino. Eric Cohen and Shane Dale. And no, there's no basketball to talk about. Oh, wait, what am I talking about? And no football. Wait, what am I talking about? But hey, always a lot going on. There is a bunch of stuff to talk about. You know, when it comes to the transfer portal, can you believe, Shane, how much action we've seen from Arizona? A team that was really successful this season. I mean, despite falling a little bit short. But I'm not sure that I expected this much movement this early on.
Yeah, no, and Arizona had to replace four starters from last season's team, and now they might have to do all five. It looks like all five this year. Depending, I mean, we do have some surprises. I mean, it was Kylan Boswell announcing his transfer surprise. Not maybe not. Umar Ballo was because I thought that he would probably either go pro somewhere or come back to Arizona. And some others down the line, and then we got a potential surprise returnee as well. So. No shortage of surprises. Just a couple days removed from the national championship game, and like I always say, we always have plenty of things to talk about, whether there's actually games taking place or not.
All right, well, let's get into it. Before we talk a lot about the transfer portal and everything that is going on with that, give me a few standouts
Yeah.
that you may have this week that I think there's a lot to talk about.
Oh yeah, we've got to start with the Red Hot baseball team, right? You know, they've won eight straight games, and most of that has to do with their pitching. Jackson Kent, Cam Walty, Clark Candiotti, they combined to allow 4 earned runs in 18 innings in Arizona's sweep at Cal. Good luck to the Golden Bears in the ACC. And by the way, our guy Brian Jeffries did not care for the setup there. I guess he's out. They set him out without a press box and just kind of out in the no man's land for his radio broadcast. So he's.
Mm.
I don't think he's going to miss the trips to Berkeley.
No, I don't think so
Maybe
either.
for
No.
multiple reasons. All right, but then so those three standing starting pitchers were outstanding, and then five pitchers combined to allow 1 run in Arizona's win at Stanford on Monday. So their team ERA, Eric, is now under 4 for the season,
Wow.
just behind Oregon State, and Oregon State is very good for the best mark in the Pac-12. So we'll talk a little bit more about them later in the show. Softball teams won 4 straight. Freshman Regan Shockey continues to be amazing. She's batting 424 this season. She went 9 of 18 with 6 RBIs in those 4 wins. And our former Wildcat Country guest, Allie Skaggs, has a home run in 3 straight games. Arizona is still just inside the top 25, and those two ladies are a big reason for that. And got to mention another former guest of ours, Clancy Shields, the head coach of the men's tennis team, which is 18-3 overall,
Good for them.
won 12 of the last 13 team matches. Colton Smith is ranked number 18 nationally on as far as individual rankings in ITA. He has a 24-10 record overall, including a 9-5 record in the number 1 spot. So when it's number 1
Wow.
versus number 1, he has a winning record, 9-5, almost a 67% winning percentage with like 60 or anyway, above 50% anyway. So want to acknowledge him and what the men's tennis team is doing because in terms of rankings, they are Arizona's best program at the moment.
How about that? I
Go
mean,
figure.
not. I guess it makes sense, but good for them. Clancy Shields doing a great job over
Yep.
there. Now it is time to talk about some interesting basketball and football related topics in Buy or Sell, which is presented by our friends at Ice Shaker. Go to iceshaker.com. Use promo code Wildcat Country, capital W, capital C, and get $5 off your first purchase. You need one of these things, especially with the summer coming up.
Yep.
It gets nice and hot here in Arizona, obviously, and you want to keep your drinks cold. And in the winter, as Shane has demonstrated on the program many times, you can keep the drinks warm.
Keeps
Also,
beverages warm and it keeps multiple types of beverages cold. I can confirm.
there you go. And especially that came in handy during the Arizona Clemson game. And if you
Mm.
buy one of these beauties, make sure to fill out the post-purchase survey, mention Wildcat Country. Shane and I will be very, very pleased
Yes.
with you if you do. So thank you very much in advance for that. All right. Number 1 in Buy or Sell, Shane. It's official. Tommy Lloyd has a problem on his hands with the likely roster turnover this year.
I think we've learned our lesson to sell that. I mean, you were in panic mode
I
last year.
was.
I don't. I
I
really.
was.
I'm trying to remember if it's revisionist history or not. Like, was I critical? I think I was
Not as bad as I
eventually, not
was.
as much.
No.
But he felt now he did kind of get lucky in landing Caleb Love because the whole debacle with Michigan took place. But no, I'm not. I'm surprised. Put it this way: surprised and a little disappointed at some of the departures, but not concerned. Okay, I think that Tommy Lloyd has shown that they won't have a problem reloading, that a lot of guys want to come play for him. Certainly with the transfer portal, that's a lot easier now. And he's got the best recruiting class, at least as far as, national domestic recruits, the best recruiting class he's had at Arizona, but by a wide margin. So no, I'm not, we I think they're going to miss some of the experience from last season, but then again, it only got them to the Sweet 16. But I think they're also going to land some experienced, talented guys in the transfer portal. So, and it's so early in the process where guys are still entering their name every single day. No, I am not concerned, although I will miss some of the guys who are on their way out, and including guys who we didn't get to see enough of.
And we'll talk about a few of those coming up here. I'm going to sell this one as well. Last year, if you have been listening to the program for that long, which we thank you very much, we've grown quite a bit in the last year. Listen, I was freaking out. I thought, how was Tommy Lloyd going to put together a program? And I was wrong. I mean, it happens from time to time, or more often than that. Nonetheless, I was wrong about that. Tommy Lloyd does a fine job. He figures out a way to make this work, and I think he will again. So not freaking out whatsoever. We're just gonna let it be and hope that he figures this out. And I think I trust that he has a plan. I really do. I think Tommy's got a plan, and we just got to let it ride out. Now we may not have news by next week's show. We may not have news in 2 weeks when we record a show. But I would say probably by mid-May, we're going to have a pretty good idea of what this roster looks like. And to find out more about that, we're going to have our guest, Bruce Pascoe from the Arizona Daily Star, join us in the second segment to give us his thoughts on what and everything that's going on with the program. All right, number 2, Shane. Buy, I'm going to give a list of players. Buy if you're surprised or upset. Sell if you were indifferent that they are on the way out, apparently. Number 1, Umar Ballo.
I'll buy it. I think a lot of people on social media are saying that it's time to move on, and he's not a good free throw shooter, not a great defender. Guys, big men as talented as Umar Ballo aren't that easy to come by. So I figured he was going to leave. I'm surprised in the manner he did it, just because you heard constantly about how tight that he and Tommy Lloyd were. You'd think that he would have been back if he would have come back to play college ball. He would have done that. But so I am disappointed. I'll be sad to see him go. It would have been really cool to see him kind of finish, say finish his story, but get to a Final Four with Tommy Lloyd, being so loyal to him and following him from Gonzaga to Arizona. And now knowing that's not going to happen is disappointing. So yeah, I'm disappointed. Is it earth shattering? Is it something that Arizona can't overcome? No, but I would have liked, if he came back, I would have liked to see him next season, despite the bricks he puts up at the free throw line and some of his defensive issues.
I'm going to sell this one. I like Umar Ballo. He's a nice player. He did a good job for Arizona, but he wasn't ever going to get better. And the free throw shooting was a problem. It got way worse this year than it was last year.
I just say it was so weird because his first year at Arizona, he was a 70% free throw shooter. He was good. He was a good free throw shooter. And then after that, he was been 50% every year. It just make it make sense. I have no idea what happened, but it just hasn't been good.
It hasn't been good. And he's probably peaked and it's time to move on. I think he'll get paid somewhere else, and I wish him the best. But we'll ask Bruce his thoughts on that and see what he thinks about Paulo. Dylan Anderson is an interesting one, though, Shane. I thought he was going to have a role this year. I think a lot of Arizona people did, and I guess it's kind of a surprise in the portal. Are you upset or are you indifferent?
I guess I'm indifferent. It certainly sounded like he redshirted for a reason, and that's to find a role on the team next season. So you just never know. We've learned from certain coaches as well. No, lip service is one thing, but actions are another. So no, we didn't see nearly enough of him, obviously, for me to really be that.
He didn't play. He redshirted.
Yeah, he redshirted this, and in his first year, he did. I mean, he barely saw the court. So no, I guess I would have to be in the indifferent camp. Although he's another guy, I guess I would have liked to see what he could have done at Arizona.
Yeah, I'm going to buy this one. I'm a little disappointed. I would, as you said, Shane, I would like to have seen what he would have done as a backup center, backup 4, and the fact that he's transferring just seems a bit weird. So I'm going to semi buy this one. All right, now let's talk about it. I waited long enough into the program. Kylan Boswell, Shane, buy if you're surprised or upset, sell if you're indifferent.
I don't know if any of those words really fit here. I'm not surprised. I think specifically because we saw the emergence of Jaden Bradley. I mean, Boswell was starting, but Bradley was, especially late in games, was the go-to guy at point guard. And I don't know if that was going to change next season. So no, I'm not surprised. I'm a little disappointed, I guess, but not surprised. And I don't blame him for doing that. I'm more surprised by Umar Ballo between those two. I know he was terribly inconsistent, but I think I think he still has star potential. And my concern is that he's going to be a star somewhere else next season, and we're all going to hate it. So, I saw a tweet earlier this week that said, of all the guys who came back last season or on this past season's roster, that Boswell was one of the biggest disappointments. Or I think it was like among all the point guards that in Arizona history, Boswell was the biggest disappointment, which is a big statement. But he thought that because he had so much potential and we had so many big expectations for him, taking over for Kirk Risa in that role. And he showed flashes of brilliance, but he just couldn't maintain it. And now he's on his way out. And so I don't know if I'd go that far, but certainly disappointing. That the whole meme disappointed but not surprised probably is where I'm at.
All right, echoing kind of what I said last week, I'm going to sell this one. Boswell, I had high hopes for him coming into the year, and he just didn't live up to him. I mean, he
Yeah.
was he was a problem for Arizona on and off the court. As you know, certain things they're rumors, and I believe some of those rumors to be true off the court. And I don't think Boswell took basketball as seriously as he probably should have, and I think it hurt the team at times throughout the season. And I'm not saying that they lost to Clemson because of Kylan Boswell, because that's not it. Everybody played bad. I mean, Caleb Love 0 for 9 from 3-point range. With that said, Kylan Boswell, I thought would take a step forward and be great, and the fan base has turned on him, and I just don't see it coming back from that. If he were to stay, I would be shocked. I think it's better a fresh start for him. Go somewhere else, be the guy, be a big guy there, and a fresh start at Arizona. It's not it. Kirk
Yeah.
Risa had to leave Arizona last year, and Kylan Boswell has to leave Arizona this year, in my opinion. All right, bonus one here. KJ Lewis. There are rumors that he would test the NBA waters. I don't think he would go, Shane. I would be super upset if he left. I think he has a lot of potential. How about you?
Agreed. Yeah, he's definitely, especially with all the guys leaving, he's locked in as a starter next season. Him and Jaden Bradley, no brainer to move them off the bench. They could have started for Arizona this season.
Yeah.
Tons of potential for KJ Lewis. It's really difficult. I mean, it was difficult to get on the court for Arizona with all the transfers and the international guys. And KJ Lewis was one of those guys that broke his way in, along with, Jaden Bradley we knew was going to play. Him and Krivas, and Lewis was really the bigger star of the two. Yes, that would be a major loss. Lewis to me is going to be huge next season, along with Jaden Bradley. Hopefully, within Arizona's NIL situation, they're able to make that offer more attractive than maybe if Lewis was a second round draft pick. We saw what happened. Saw what happened with Terry a couple of years ago. As far as him, he bet on himself. He thought he was going to be a
Yeah, but
first
that was
round pick.
after a second. I mean, KJ Lewis,
Yeah,
I don't think there's enough tape there to make him a first round
yeah.
pick.
Well, and we
Even in a
saw,
weak draft.
and this was pre NIL, but you remember guys like Grant Jarrett and Kobe Simmons leaving after
Yeah.
their first year, big mistakes. I mean, you never
Hey,
heard from
Kobe
those
Simmons
guys
still
again.
playing in the league somehow. He's still playing in the NBA
Yeah,
somehow. Yeah.
yeah, but I guess that wasn't as big a mistake. But you don't hear his name, and you never know if
Nope.
if he had developed more, maybe he would have been a bigger name. And Grant Jarrett, we never heard from. So
Oh, right.
that's just
Never
kind of
heard
my
from him
point.
again.
Yeah.
Nope. Yeah, you're right. Great point. Number 3, if Caleb Love returns, as I think there's a pretty good chance that Caleb Love returns. I just have
Do
a
you?
good feeling about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I have a good feeling about that. If he returns, hypothetically, Arizona's in good shape with its roster no matter what, by
Let me
herself.
let me just ask you before I answer that. Do you think one of the reasons he might return is because he has unfinished business after just getting Arizona to the Sweet 16, or do you think it's mainly because he'd potentially make more money at Arizona next season?
Here's my take on this one.
Yeah.
If you were a player and you could get the same amount of money, go be on a two-way contract in the NBA and the G League, you're probably never going to play serious minutes unless a team like Memphis, like we saw in the NBA this year, where their whole team gets hurt and they just call up their entire G League team and plays them. Outside of that, you're probably not. I mean, that's a very rare situation. You're probably not getting involved in that. So if I'm going to, let's say 500K is the salary, get
Yeah.
it at Arizona. You get to be on a college campus. You get so many choices of pretty girls, and everybody fawns over you. And in the G League, nobody cares. And so
Uh,
I really think that's a factor.
yeah, there's a report that Keisha Johnson made 400,000 at Arizona last
Yeah.
season. So you'd
If
wonder if
Caleb
he's
comes
making
back, he's making more.
400K,
Yeah.
then you think Caleb Love would make it, probably more than that.
Yeah. So 500K, that's the
So
reason. If I'm Caleb Love for that reason. So
so
he
your
comes back,
question,
Arizona's roster is in good shape, right?
yeah, I'll buy it. I mean, there's part of me that kind of, depending on who they can get in the transfer portal, maybe it kind of wants him to move on just because of how streaky he is. But alpha guys like that, because you talked about, before going into the last season, Arizona needed an alpha guy, and he was it. He was not afraid to take those shots, and he got cold at exactly the wrong time. We know that it wasn't. I don't think it was because of the moment, because he's played in those moments before, and he's persevered. So but he is who he is. But yes, I mean, look, if they have a chance to bring him back, then they need to bring him back. Absolutely.
Yep.
I think he
Yeah.
matured as well at Arizona, despite them
Yeah.
not making it that far in the tournament. I think he became a better defensive player, a better all around guy, more team focused, even though he does want the ball in this. There's a difference between being selfish and wanting the ball in your hands at the last second.
Yeah.
You can be a great teammate and still want that shot. And I think Caleb Love developed even more so into that guy this past season. And so yes, if Arizona has a chance to bring him back, then absolutely they should.
Yeah, I think
I think they'd be in very good shape.
Yeah, and I think the thing about it too, Shane, is if Caleb Love comes back, I mean, you're looking at a guy that's probably first team All American, preseason first team All American, National Player of the Year candidate, and you're looking at Arizona as a top 6, 7 team. I mean, I've seen him already as number 8 in
No,
preseason ranking. I mean,
why are those rankings
I know this
even
doesn't
out
mean
right
nothing,
now?
right? I know because Arizona was 12 last year and then ended up being number 1 in 2 weeks.
Yeah, and
Something like that.
finished right back at number 11,
At 12, yeah,
same slot
yeah.
as the football team.
And it's funny that
Go
it kind of
figure.
worked out that way.
Yeah.
All right, number 4. Speaking of the football team, it's fair to be worried about Jedd Fisch poaching more of Arizona's players in this next transfer portal cycle. Buy or sell?
Have you seen anything on that, or is it just you're wondering if some of these guys are because my guess is you're thinking some of these guys, they're staying loyal to the program, they're gonna go through spring ball, and then so maybe someone will realize, you know what, I tried it out, just this coaching staff just isn't for me, and I want to go with what I'm familiar with.
I'm talking big play. I mean, do you think Arizona's going to lose anybody big? I mean, there are going to be guys I would think that would end up at Washington for Jedd that are depth pieces, but and I don't know who they are. I'm just speculating, totally pulling that one out of my rear end. But are you concerned about Jedd poaching? And I know, there have been rumors that Jedd is still actively trying to recruit this roster up north.
Wouldn't surprise me. No, I don't know. And I guess another question is how competitive is Arizona football in terms of NIL? I saw this, I forget who reported it at 24/7 Sports, that like the top 10 teams prepared to open their wallets for in the transfer portal. I saw Arizona at number 3, which is kind of crazy to me because like what do you have in your wallet anyway? But of course, NIL is separate from their financial issues. So with that in mind, would they open their wallet to keep some of these guys? I don't know how that's all going to work. I'm not too concerned about it. Like if you're talking big players, like if you're thinking T-Mac, I seriously doubt it, especially with the ties with Noah Fafita and Kean Burnett and Jacob Manu. I think those guys are kind of a package deal. On defense, maybe. You know what was crazy? I saw a stat that Arizona's returning 70% of its offensive production and 62% of its defensive production next year, as of now.
Yeah.
I mean, if there wasn't a coaching change, that would be good. And they had a coach that's a remarkable job by Brett Brennan and the staff. With that said, I feel like the guys who are going to leave specifically for Washington are probably already there. Maybe you get another 1 or 2 guys, but I do think it's fair to think that maybe a handful of guys are going to go through spring ball and say, you know what, I gave this a shot. This just isn't the way I want to be coached. This just isn't the best way for me to get to the next level. And I think I'm going to move on. And that's okay. I want those guys, as much as I don't want a big name to move on. If they think they're going to be a better fit somewhere else and they're not going to be happy at Arizona, then that's the decision they need to make.
I'm not as concerned, so I'm going to sell this one. I'm not as concerned that Jedd's going to poach anybody big. I think the fact is, if you look at Arizona, you have a coaching staff the coach that really wants to be here, that is going to be here for the long term. You have a coaching staff that's energetic, and they got the most out of lesser talent at San Jose State. You have a team that finished number 11 in the country, has the second longest winning streak in the country. Amazing. Behind Michigan.
I'd forgotten about that. That's a crazy stat, isn't it?
And they are moving. It is a crazy stat. And they are moving to a conference that's very, very winnable. Yeah. I mean, there's no team in that conference that you're like, wow. I mean, Arizona is right there with Utah, Kansas State, Kansas, Oklahoma State. I'm sure there's probably another 1 or 2 I'm missing that are up there. Texas Tech. I mean, Arizona's a contender. And you know what? I would think that players would want to play for a team that has a chance to be in positions. Arizona's going to be on bigger time period, bigger TV slots this year.
Yeah, and I'm sure that's part of it. I think the number one factor in recruiting or the transfer portal these days, maybe even more so than NIL money, is guys want to go somewhere where they can get coached up and have a better chance to play the pro level, to be a higher draft pick, to be a draft pick, period. Yeah. And I think that was a great selling point that Jedd Fisch and his staff had, and they have at Washington. They have guys who have coached in the NFL, played in the NFL, knows what it takes to get there. And that's the biggest challenge, in my opinion, for Brett Brennan and his staff. Maybe they get there as well. Maybe they're able to have those discussions, but Jedd had those unlimited connections as well. that's going to be the biggest challenge for this staff going forward. They're off to a great start with retaining as many guys as they did. But going forward, that to me is going to be a bigger driver than anything, including, where you're slotted on TV and chances to win national championships. Guys want somewhere where they can be featured and where they can be coached up and possibly play in the NFL.
We will have a lot of football related talk coming up with the spring game in a few weeks. So we'll talk a lot more about that before and after. There's a lot of reason. I don't think in terms of Arizona football, I don't think there's a season we've been more excited for coming into it than going back to the 90s. I mean, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. Were you more excited for Khalil Tate's second season with Kevin Sumlin? This team proved it. And you're bringing back your quarterback and wide receiver, your wide receiver who's a first round pick next year. When's the last time Arizona had a first round pick? It's been a long time.
Yeah. I'm
even Rob Gronkowski went in the second.
That's true. So, was Evan Britton the first rounder or no?
He was. I don't think so. No,
he's second round as well. Yeah, no, it has been a minute, hasn't it?
Well, great discussion in the first segment. And before we bring on Bruce Pascoe, let's talk about our sponsor, Harrah's Auction Casino. Hey, Wildcat fans, do you want to win a brand new car? It's time to play for your chance to drive one away. Harrah's Auction Casino is celebrating its 30th anniversary with a Win Your Wheels giveaway. This is your chance every month to win a new car. Just play your favorite slots at Harrah's Auction using your Caesars Rewards card on the last Saturday of each month to win your wheels. The more you play, the more entries you'll receive. Harrah's Auction Casino, play for all. Coming up next, Bruce Pascoe here on Wildcat Country.
What's up, Wildcat Country? Chris Gronkowski here, and I'm at the Ice Shaker Warehouse, the proud sponsor of the Wildcat Country podcast. And I got something new and exciting to show you. We're talking about the 4D printed University of Arizona shaker bottles with the Legacy Championships on it. Check it out now at iceshaker.com.
Shane, there is no shortage of anything to talk about regarding Arizona basketball. And we have the perfect guy on Wildcat Country this week to talk about it. The ace reporter from the Arizona Daily Star, Bruce Pascoe, joins us once again on the show. Bruce, before we get into all the transfers and who's going to be on the roster and who's not, your thoughts on Arizona losing to Clemson. Were you surprised, number one, and would you consider the end result a disappointment based on expectations?
I was a little surprised. Yeah, I thought they'd get to Saturday and lose to either one of those teams on Saturday, but I thought they could beat Clemson. I just thought Clemson would be worn out. I thought the matchup was pretty good for them, but they were worn out. Clemson didn't play that well, but Arizona was just terrible shooting, and didn't make up for it defensively either. And to answer the second part, Eric, I think not a surprise based on expectations back in October, but a surprise based on expectations in late November, early December when they ratcheted it through the roof. And that's what I've kind of been saying all along is, if there's a fault with this team is that they win too much in November, and it raises expectations through the roof. And they were number one for a couple of weeks. They killed Wisconsin at home, I remember. And then with the Final Four being in Glendale, it was easy to kind of think, oh, maybe this is the year for the Wildcats or whatever. I just think their expectations got too high. I never thought this was a championship team. I thought maybe they'd be a Final Four team, but that it's just asking a lot. And I think they, especially for a team that really lost 4 starters from last season, and they pieced together what was a pretty good team as it turned out. And if you look at it that way, it wasn't that it was at least to expectations.
Yeah, I'm with you, Bruce. I thought they were going to lose to Alabama in the Elite Eight going into the tournament. So didn't get that opportunity. Yeah. But here we are. Bruce, I don't want to beat a dead horse because I feel like I've talked about this. We've talked about this so much in the last couple of weeks, but you do have some fans, not all, and maybe not even most, but some fans who are out there saying Tommy Lloyd's just not a good tournament coach. 3 years in, fair or unfair, in your opinion?
Well, he's even admitted himself. He's still a young coach. He's still evolving. I mean, as good as he's, seemed to be at Gonzaga as an assistant and well regarded, there's still that extra step when you're in that chair, or not in that chair actually, as a head coach and roaming around the floor making those decisions. And you could say there were some things that were kind of rough in retrospect. I mean, everybody's hindsight is 2020, as they say, why didn't they attack the basket more against Clemson? Why didn't they go to Jaden Bradley more often? Things like that, so there's a little bit of that, for sure. But I mean, I think overall, if you consider where this program was when, COVID hit and the FBI had done its thing and this and that, and, it was looking pretty rough. And so, the big picture is in 3 years, they've, resurrected the program to a national relevance pretty fast. And, whether or not they can get to that next step and with Tommy Lloyd is, remains to be seen. But, again, it's only been 3 years. So
Yeah.
it's hard to say.
All right. Well, and at this point, Bruce, it's a shorter list to say who might be coming back next season versus who's leaving. As of now,
Yeah.
who do you predict back on the Arizona roster next season?
Well, I mean, it's actually interesting because one of the things I did during the tournament was, they have open locker room sessions that they require, NCAA requires. So I actually got a chance to talk to everybody basically, and Conrad Martinez, KJ Lewis, both gave me indications they were pretty locked in on, and psyched about coming back. I think, Lewis could, he's a fringe NBA draft prospect already. It's possible he could test it this spring just to kind of see what he hears, kind of like Pelle Larson did last year. But I think he's coming back. I think, gosh, there's, and then Bradley, same deal with him. If he wants to test it, maybe, but I got to think he seemed happy here, and now he's assured of, having a starting role and, kind of making it his team, which, if he can perform in that role, really it can elevate him as an NBA prospect. So I got to think he's coming back as well. Caleb Love is really kind of the big question mark at this point. And, it seems like almost a 50-50 deal, which I wouldn't have guessed at the end of the year. I thought he was gone for sure, but, he's not projected to be a draft pick. And, and there's NIL money out there, and I think Arizona's competitive in that realm. And if Arizona wants him to stay, I think they can do it. It's the question of, does he want to, or does he want to jump in the draft? And even if he doesn't get picked, maybe he can get a two-way deal and he makes 500 that way. That's the decision I would imagine he's weighing right now.
All right, so yeah, and as far as Love goes, as I mentioned in the last segment to Shane, I'd be shocked if he left. Let me say that. Wouldn't be shocked if he stayed. Sorry, I wouldn't be shocked if he stayed. I would probably, I kind of lean in. I'm kind of leaning that way. Like one hand says, why would you stay if you're Caleb? You have nothing more to prove in college. I guess winning a national title and what are the odds? But yeah, Shane's right. I mean, money gives you an opportunity. All right, so Caleb, I think there's a shot. Do you think Boswell's 100% gone? Do you think Dylan Anderson's 100% gone? And do you think, explain Umar Ballo?
That's a lot of questions there. I mean, like, it's funny because first of all, I'd say that in this era, I don't think you can say shocked about anything. It's just
Okay.
anything goes. Everybody's a free agent. And, even if guys like where they're at and they're playing and they love the coach, they still might want to look in the transfer portal and just say, hey, can I get another 100,000 by going there? I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, like, I think that's what's happening here. So it's hard to say, but the Arizona and the high level teams that are competitive in the NIL deal, they do have a level playing field where they can keep guys that they want. And so anyway, but I think as far as Dylan Anderson was actually, of all the transfers, he might actually be the most surprising, just to me anyway, because he had indicated, when I asked him about in the locker room about what he was doing this year and how it was going, he just kept saying, you guys, he said, you guys will see what I can do now or what I've been working on. And I was like, well, what do you mean? He said, you'll see. And so, he kind of hinted like, meaning Mikhail fans are going to see, and then boom, he's gone. So, I don't know. I think it seems pretty confirmed. I think that he was in the portal. Boswell, all I've seen is reportedly entering, but there's been no indications that he's not. It just hasn't been. He hasn't announced it himself for whatever reason, and then Ballo clearly has announced it. And the biggest explanation there that I can think of is, probably mutual to some extent. I mean, the one thing that strikes me about it is, Umar basically is Tommy Lloyd's son, another son of Tommy Lloyd.
Yeah.
Those guys are so close. So I can't imagine that Umar would leave unless Tommy Lloyd didn't at least somewhat endorse it, or so I think, and also if you just look at the big picture here with him, these COVID years have kind of, one of the collateral things with these COVID years is they've hampered the natural progression. So Tommy Lloyd's got a guy with Mo Krivas who was probably more efficient on a per 40-minute basis than Umar, possibly even better defensively, certainly better at the free throw line. He didn't shoot much, I think. And, so just a lot of upside there. And he's a freshman, kind of a sophomore when you usually make that big jump. So if you bring Umar back, the problem is these guys cannot play together. Most likely, it would be really. I mean, I think there's been some talk about, but it'd be really, select. Not very often you could do that. So you're basically, if you bring Umar back, you're basically going to hamper his development potentially. And I don't know what, he seems to be happy, but there's always that problem, and this has happened at other schools with these COVID year guys. I think even at Oregon State, I remember talking to Wayne Tinkle about how basically he had to say goodbye to some guys he really liked, because if you bring that guy back, you have a year of him, that's great, but you might have 2 or 3 guys under him that you like to develop that you would potentially get 2 or 3 years from, and they're going to leave. So that's the thing. So I think because of that, and I also wonder too if the Lithuanian club and federation behind Krivas, if they, there's always a relationship there with Tommy Lloyd, and I know it's a slightly different deal, but with Morauskas, I can't imagine anybody in Lithuania is happy about what happened to him this year. So there's a lot of factors at play here, and I don't know. I haven't talked to him, or I've been trying to. I would like to at some point, but there could also be a piece that where he just said, "Hey, I'm 2-time All Pac-12, did everything I can do. I love it here, blah blah blah. But maybe it's time to check out another place and maybe hear another perspective from a different coach, and maybe that helps him get a little piece that he needs to get to the NBA." Or wherever he can best go as a pro, because right now he wouldn't be a draft pick either. So
No, I think he's going to get paid though, Bruce. I think I mean, Umar's going somewhere to get paid.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion. What do you make of Vasar? We haven't talked about him.
Right, but he could get paid. He could get paid in Arizona. I mean, maybe he gets more somewhere else, and that could be something that he and Tommy Lloyd talked about. Again, they're super close, and I'm sure.
I'm sorry, just to be clear on this, international recruits, I mean, international student athletes, are they still eligible for NIL money? Because I feel like I'm getting mixed signals on that.
I know it's constantly evolving, and the thing is, it's not it's not an NCAA rule. It's an ICE rule, basically. You're not, if you're on a student visa, you're not supposed to take a job away from an American student. But what's happened is these collectives have all sprung up, and they're basically 95% of what NIL is anyway, it seems like. And these collectives can pay the players, and then sort of as an organization, and then invite the players to say, hey, show up at our thing, do this charity thing, show up at Top Golf, whatever. But it's not required, so it's not a job, and therefore it can be considered passive income. And bottom line is, international guys can get NIL if it's ruled passive income, that if they're not working for it, which is why usually you don't see international guys on TV endorsing things, although you did with Follow, and that's a big question mark for me as to how that worked out. But generally they don't do the autograph signings and stuff like that, because those are sort of jobs, so to speak. But you can also just do that stuff. It's not the NCAA is going to make you ineligible. It's just that potentially you could have your student visa taken away from you and deported, but that hasn't happened yet. So my guess is that a lot of schools are getting a little more aggressive with it, because it's just not happening, and the government hasn't formalized
keep
really
pushing until
it
tips over, kind of just keep seeing how far they can go.
Yeah. And the government's got other things to worry about. I don't think student athletes, the student visas, I don't
well
think
I mean, the FBI descended
them.
on Book Richardson in Arizona, so you never know.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, I've been trying for, I think, 3 years now, asking people in the government, when are you going to come up with something or other? And I always get the same response, that it's still being considered or something. So, and it's been almost 3 years now since NIL started. So it's just bottom line, it's a weird situation with international players, but you know, for the most part, they can get probably 70-80% of what American athletes are getting.
Okay. Uh,
If I had to guess.
what do you have any idea what kinds of, I mean, because the transfer portal, I mean, it's just it's the Wild West, and new players are entering every day. Do you have any idea who Tommy Lloyd's staff is targeting, or what kinds of players they might be targeting going into next season?
No, no. I mean, it's still kind of early. I mean, I think there were some I think with Keyshaw Johnson leaving and losing some depth in the bigs, I think a power forward or another big that's willing to grow and play a role is a possibility. I think what Mark Mitchell, I know Mark Mitchell just got in the portal from Duke, and there was already some speculation automatically they might go after him. I have no idea if that's true or not, but that kind of player would be an option. And then now they're especially if Caleb Love leaves, you got to think they're going to add another guard too. Um, but it's awfully early. I mean, and these things change so fast. If we did this, in 3 days, I'm sure I might have different impressions, different thoughts on what might happen. Who knows? But I think it's interesting because I think entering the offseason, the expectation is maybe just a power forward, and they might be okay considering the freshmen they got coming in. But now I think at least two guys, probably probably a backcourt guy and a big forward at least.
Looking at the freshman class, this is my last question for you, Bruce. Looking at that class as it stands, the most impressive, and I've told Eric, definitely looks more like a Sean Miller class in terms of just loading up on American high school commits versus going international with a lot of the new guys. Who in
Yeah,
that
it's
class do you
interesting.
do you think is most likely to make the biggest impact in year one?
Well, I think I don't know much about Joe Santana, and he's very young. He'll be reclassifying, but everything I've heard, I have not seen him. He's like a Ben Matherin, just kind of all out scorer kind of guy. And he could have an impact if he gets eligible, and especially if Love leaves. I think if Love comes back, I actually kind of think it'd be interesting to see if he still shows up. But and then Carter Bryant, I think, is the other pretty clear one that he'll be. He could start at the four if he's ready. If they bring in an experienced four transfer, maybe he plays off the bench. And then I think Emmanuel Steffen probably plays a small role as a backup center behind Krivas next year. And then Basar is an X factor. I don't really know where he's going to fit in or how good he's going to be because we haven't seen him since last year basically because he was hurt this year. So those two guys, I think Jamari Phillips certainly he's a scorer as well, and he might make a punch, but it's hard to say. I mean, I think a year ago you looked at all the guards. Well, not a year ago, but when they got everybody, you looked at all the guards and you said, "How is KJ Lewis going to get on the floor?" But he got on the floor because he was a really aggressive scorer, brought a different kind of game to that backcourt and played some defense. So, it's hard to say now, but yeah, that'd be my guesses.
All right. Now, we don't know, Bruce, what the roster is going to look like next year, obviously. How optimistic are you that Arizona is going to have a pretty darn good season at this point? I know it's early for 2024-25.
It's early, but I mean, so I think you got to look at just probably the track record that Lloyd and the staff has had at putting together rosters, and by the end of June or mid June or whatever, whenever they get done, and by then I would think that if they get the pieces they have, they're probably going to be a little younger. I think this year was a real luxury for them having four seniors in that starting lineup. I don't think they can get that at this point, so there may be a little step down because of the inexperience that they have. But I mean, they still should be a top 15, top 20 team and probably can compete for another Sweet 16 and, maybe even better than that, depending on who's out there. There may be somebody who's not even in the portal yet that they're going to go when, you never know what guys come back in the NBA draft, et cetera. It's just hard to say, but I think if you go by the track record, they'll put together a competitive team. It'll be different because they're going to the Big 12 and they may only finish fourth or fifth in that league, but if you finish fourth or fifth in that league, you've got a chance to make a Final Four as well, probably.
All right, last one for you. Give me a bold prediction. Anything related to Arizona basketball. And we're not going to hold you to it. We're not going to say, oh, Bruce said this, so it's a must. Anything over the next year regarding Arizona basketball, AKA Tommy Lloyd and the Kentucky job. Is there anything to that? And I don't think there is, but I'm just
Wow.
anything that's bold, we'll take it.
Wow. I don't know. I mean, actually the thing that's kind of been, interesting about it, it's been other than, a little bit of revolving door in the spring, it's been pretty stable, overall. I mean, no staffers have left. I mean, like none of his staffers have left all the way down the line. He's added a couple guys. And players seem to like it here. They do tend to leave for other reasons sometimes. Gosh, so it's hard to make
I would say that keeping a whole staff together
like
would be as bold a prediction as any at this point, right?
Yeah, I mean, and he's already done that. I mean, there's been talk that maybe Steve Robinson, maybe he decides to retire at some point. He's a veteran coach, has been around a long time, done a lot of great things. Maybe that happens. That's not exactly a bold prediction, though. I think, yeah, if you're looking at that staff, I mean, Ricky Foyce is always a candidate to coach internationally if he wants to do that. He's already been in the NBA, and he's got a pretty good track record at developing guys at this level. And Jack Murphy's already been a head coach. He's very satisfied here. I think, when well thought of, happy and this and that, and well paid, etc. So I don't see him going anywhere unless, you never know. Maybe he gets another try, but I don't think I'd predict that, at least right now.
I'm gonna give you one, Bruce.
I don't know. I don't mean to be wishy-washy, guys, but I don't really have one for you, at least at this point. It's tricky.
I'll give you mine. Dan Monson will be on Arizona's staff in some capacity next year.
Well, that's an interesting one. You could see him. I mean, there was talk, I remember a year ago, that they might bring in like a special advisor type of person. That could happen. I mean, that's not a bad prediction. I didn't even think of that. But I think Munson could probably. I would think he could probably get another head coaching job somewhere else. He's still pretty well regarded if he wants it, and he seemed to want, at least when he was talking about it. He seemed to kind of want to give it one more try, and I would think that somewhere on that level he could, because he's got a pretty good reputation. I think it was just a situation at Long Beach where he had been there a long time, and sometimes the change just helps everybody, kind of thing. So but that could definitely happen. I mean, they're like, it's crazy. We all wrote that story and talked about it a lot, but they're like brothers, those two guys.
There you go. That's my bold prediction. We'll find out. Bruce, always great to talk with you, especially
it's better than anything I got.
Well, especially with everything going on right now. Appreciate you taking some time to come on with Shane and I. And you know what? Considering the way things are going, I have a feeling we'll be talking to you again here soon.
Yeah, let's do it. I mean, like I said, this time of year is fascinating, really. I mean, people talk about the tournament. Do you like covering the tournament? This is the time of year when it's crazy, and like, really, you just got to keep, you got to keep on the phone, on the computer all day. It's just, things are changed so fast. So yeah, in a week or a month, certainly from now, we could know. I remember last year, I think it was entering May, he only had 7 guys. And then 4 weeks later, the roster was full.
Yeah, Eric was in full panic mode too, if I remember right. Yeah.
I am no panic mode. No panic mode this year. I am that's calm. Yeah, I'm good.
Well, that's why I say you gotta go with Tommy Lloyd's track record of building pretty good rosters in the offseason, and I think the NIL situation here is competitive. So those two things, should bode well for them building what they want.
Discover more Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino.
Hi folks, here are your drinks.
Where having fun means racking up reward credits with the Caesars Rewards loyalty program that can be redeemed for food, free play, hotel stays, and more. Not only here in the city of Maricopa, but also at more than 50 Caesars properties coast to coast. From Harrah's Las Vegas to Caesars Palace in Atlantic City. What are you waiting for? Play for All at Harrah's Auction Casino, the official sponsor of Play.
Great to catch up with Bruce. Always chatty. So always fun to catch up with him. Shane, we haven't talked about them in a while, but we are on a platform called Autograph. Tell us about them.
Autograph, founded by Tom Brady, a gentleman of note. You can find our podcast there. The whole idea of Autograph is to reward college sports fans simply for being fans. You download the Autograph app, subscribe to the Arizona channel. Please use your referral code Wildcat Country. That's one word, all lowercase, Wildcat Country. And you'll find pretty much all the Arizona-related media content you already consume all in one place, including our podcast, which, of course, is the crown jewel. And for every story you read, every podcast episode you download, you'll accrue points that you can use to buy some cool stuff. So check us out on Autograph, subscribe to the Arizona channel. You'll help us out a lot. And we think you're really going to like the app and get all your Arizona Wildcats news, including ours, all in one spot. If you'll permit me, Eric, I have a sort of a personal plug as well. My wife is a registered dietitian, and she is doing a kidney walk, the Phoenix Kidney Walk, this Sunday, and she is raising money for the National Kidney Foundation. And if you would, her goal is to raise $1,000, and so I'm going to do a quick plug for her. The best way to donate, and there's something in it for you, so stick around. Don't fast forward. There's something in it for you. I'm just going to bring up the website real quick so I don't miss it here. It is kidneywalk.org/Phoenix/Jennifer Boppdale. Jennifer, Boppdale. And so here's the deal. Donate $20 to that particular site, and Jenny's, my wife, her site, by Sunday, end of day Sunday. Forward me that confirmation to arizonashane@gmail.com. I know I'm throwing a lot of email addresses at you. arizonashane@gmail.com, and I will send you a signed copy of Rich Rod versus Graham. So $20, great deal, signed copy. It's a great book. Trust me. Eric's read it cover to cover, I know, many times. So it will help her out a lot. So please make sure you do that. I'll tweet it out as well so you have all the information. Don't have to write all this down. But that would be a great help, and Jenny and I would appreciate it very much.
And thank you to anyone in advance for donating to an excellent cause. So appreciate that. All right, Shane, final segment. We don't have picks because there's no basketball games or football games being played. But let's talk a little baseball and softball talk. So I have a few questions for you and let you see how you handle them. Arizona baseball, you mentioned earlier in the show, won 8 straight. Is Chip Hale off the hot seat?
For now, yeah. They're firmly in the NCAA tournament field, you think, for now. Baseball America does weekly field of 64 projections. Last week they were in their last 4 in. This week, not a problem. They've won 8 in a row. They're firmly in the field. They have them as how it's structured in the regionals. You have 16 different locations, and each team is seeded 1 through 4. Arizona is projected as a 3 seed in, I think, UCF's location. UCF would be the number 11 overall seed. It gets very confusing if you don't follow it. So if you don't really follow baseball that much, don't worry about it. But long story short, Arizona's in the field as of now. They have an RPI of 44, which is the second best in the Pac-12, well behind Oregon State. It's kind of sad that 44 is the second best in the conference in their last year, because Pac-12's traditionally had a pretty decent baseball conference. But they're second place in RPI in the conference, and also in second place in the conference overall in the standings, right behind the Beavers. So no, that they're coming around. The biggest question mark was pitching. That's coming along. Cam Walty has been an absolute stud for Arizona all season. So I don't expect them to win every single game the rest of the season, but they keep on the pace they're on and get to at least get to regionals. And I think he's at least bought himself some more time.
How about softball? Is being tied for 25th in the latest poll good enough for Arizona?
Well, I keep going back to this, and the fact is, as much of a legend as Mike Hendrea is, and he deserves his own statue at Arizona right next to Lewis Olson's. Arizona softball wasn't quite as good, really, in the final decade that he was the head coach compared to before then. I mean, they were still very good. They made the super regionals a bunch and got to an occasional College World Series, but they weren't the dominant, national powerhouse, the team that won national titles left and right toward the end. And that's really the program that Caitlin Lowe inherited. So, with this team, hitting's not a problem. Arizona's second in batting average, third in slugging percentage in the Pac-12. There are only 9 softball teams in the Pac-12, so that's the caveat. But the one common denominator in all of Arizona's best softball teams over the years is the star pitcher. Nancy Evans, Jenny Finch, Alicia Hollowell, Taryn Moet. Arizona hasn't had a truly elite pitcher in a while. Now, Aisa Silva, Aisa Silva's having a good year for Arizona. She has a 2.65 ERA, which is the best on the team. She has 16 wins, and she's a sophomore, so she still has a lot of upside. But that's really what you need, because in softball, it's a little different. You can ride like one pitcher for almost the entire postseason. Not all of it, but most of it. Softball is just different. They can go 10, 12 innings sometimes if need be. And that is really what Arizona's been missing is getting that top pitching talent. So whether they have that person on the roster who's going to develop into that eventually, or they need to pick one up, that's what Caitlin Lowe, that's the big challenge facing Caitlin Lowe. And if she can find even one of those, a top 10 national pitcher, then that can change everything for Arizona.
Yeah. And it's time that they get, I mean, it's been too long where Arizona just has not had elite pitching. You would think Arizona's still a blue blood. When it comes to softball, you got to do better. Arizona softball playing this weekend, hosting number 22 Oregon for a 3-game series starting on Friday. Next week is ASU. We'll talk about that. But Arizona baseball hosts Louisiana Tech in a non-conference series Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then they're at GCU on Tuesday. All right, Shane, tell me, of the 3 against Oregon and of the 4 games that I just referenced for baseball, how many does each team win?
No, we are doing some picks. Okay.
Softball
team. The softball team's hosting Oregon.
Yeah, can they take the series?
Yeah,
can they win 2 out of 3?
2 out of 3 at home? Absolutely. Yeah, I'll go 2 out of 3 at home. And then for the baseball team, I mean, GCU is legitimately good. They just beat ASU, which is not, that's not terribly impressive right now. But GCU's got a good baseball team. So I don't know about that one. I think certainly Louisiana Tech, they'll take the series there. Between the 4 games, let's say 3 out of 4 for the baseball team and 2 out of 3 for the softball team.
I'm just going to say this. I think the winning streak gets to 11. I think Arizona sweeps Louisiana Tech this weekend. Now, I don't know much about Louisiana Tech baseball. I don't know if they're very good or not, but I just have a feeling this team is playing so well. And I've been really hard on Chip Hale for a long time.
You really have. You've been kind of
actually, you know what?
About it.
Yeah. Now, Louisiana Tech's 25-9, so they're pretty good. I still think Arizona, they're riding the hot hand. I think they're gonna take care of business. Don't let me down, Chip. I'm on the bandwagon. I'm flip-flopping here. I get it, but you've won 8 in a row. You beaten UCLA. You swept UCLA. You went up to the Bay Area. You won 4 games. I'm buying. Okay. Don't let me down. I'm just saying that. So great show as always, Shane. Thanks to Bruce Pascoe for joining us. Thanks to our sponsors, Harrah's Auction Casino, and of course, our friends at Ice Shaker. For Shane Dale, I'm Eric Cohen. Thanks as always for listening. And as always, bear down.